This is the voice of the Committee of Enigmas, a special subsidiary group of the Trans-Global Institute of Archaeological Investigations. My name is Dr. Mungo Macrae, and I wish to introduce you to the Hontropy Ex Phenomena Archives. The Caoineag of Strathlethan Bay. Strathlethan Bay is a hidden enclave that lies to the north of Dunnottar Castle, near the coastal village of Stonehaven in northeast Scotland. It is here that we find the precipitous geological marvel of a prominent sea stack, a conglomerate sandstone elevation, which is also the site of an ancient ruined Pictish fort called Dunacair. Dunacair has been the scene of some important archaeological excavations and is the focal point of our next case study, the Caoineag of Strathlethan Bay. Ms Marley Gray of the Department of Anthropology at the University of Aberdeen is a postgraduate research student and a prospective associate member of the Institute of Archaeological Investigations. She is a brilliant young scholar with a rapidly growing reputation in her chosen field of ethnographic studies, focusing on the customs, rituals, and belief systems of the seafaring peoples of Britain and Ireland. When she recently requested the use of the Parafaction Sound Investigation System, I asked her to submit a proposal outlining what she intended to do with it and why. She replied adroitly with the following message. I wish to pursue a secret research project to be carried out in the vicinity of the sea stack of Dunacair, in which I hope to capture the elusive sounds of a Caoineag, or the weeper, which is the Scottish equivalent of the Irish banshee. The Caoineag of Strathlethan Bay is said to haunt the turbulent seas of the shattered coasts of Dunacair. Reports have been made of an anthropoid aquatic creature that breaks the surface of the unruly swell, usually during stormy weather, sometimes emitting a doleful wailing or singing sound, believed to be in anticipation or activation of some imminent catastrophe. As improbable as it may seem, I have it on good authority from my contact in Stonehaven that the folkloric traditions associated with the Caoineag of Strathlethan Bay may contain a modicum of truth. As such, I wish to undertake an acoustic survey of the outlying area in order to obtain hard evidence of the existence of the creature, which according to the local folk histories is said to dwell there. At this point, I had no hesitation in forwarding her proposal to the Committee of Enigmas for a fuller, more formal consideration. Within a matter of days, permission was granted on the condition that Miss Gray was accompanied by an experienced field operator, for which I recommended Professor Madeleine Escoffier of the University of Edinburgh to supervise Miss Gray for the duration of her trip. Under the supervision of Professor Escoffier, Miss Gray made a series of recordings around the high water mark of the shattered elevations, warped escarpments, and shingle beaches of Strathlethan Bay, but ultimately to no avail. She was unable to capture any sonic materials of special interest during the activation of the finding device. It was, she says, a pitch-black night in which the details of sounds were lost in the din of the waves and the fulsome gusts of the autumnal headwinds. In the morning after, however, Miss Gray and Professor Escoffier came across a lobster pot that had been deposited, or perhaps abandoned, on the pebble beach on the far side of the bay. When they looked inside the lobster pot, they found a strange array of what is known locally as clay bodies, or clay corpses, small figurines made of clay, which in the folk customs of the far north perform a similar function to voodoo dolls on the islands of Haiti. Accordingly, and upon their further scrutiny, Miss Gray and the professor noticed that the clay bodies, around 7 in total, had been penetrated with large wooden pins or dowel rods that had been struck through the eyes and torsos of their miniature physiques. Miss Gray thought it a curious enough discovery to be included in her summary account of the research investigation, which had otherwise amounted to a disappointing failure. The account was committed to the Hontrepy archives, along with the tape reels of the unsuccessful sound recordings they had made. None of it was given further consideration until a week or so later, when I received notification of a certain occurrence which prompted me to retrieve the tapes and set them up on the reel-to-reel for a second listening. It was Miss Gray herself, slipping a note beneath my office door, who drew attention to the terrible tragedy that had recently unfolded in the waters off the coast of Strathlethan Bay. She included a handwritten note from her contact in Stonehaven, a man by the name of Robert Facherson. Facherson had reported that a local trawler by the name of the Athena had gone down with all hands, whereupon the entire crew of 7 men in total had been drowned at sea. Incredibly, their bodies had been found washed ashore on the pebble beach of the bay, and beside them the lobster pot, such as it was found by Miss Gray and the Professor Escoffier. But this time it was completely empty. My thoughts, of course, returned to the small figurines, the clay bodies with the pins sticking out of them, 7 in total, as I recall. I thought then also of the Caoineag of Strathlethan Bay, the original target of Miss Gray's research. A strange feeling took hold of me, a sort of uneasiness combined with a rush of urgency provoked by an accumulating sense of wonder. I felt a growing compunction to retrieve the tapes of the sound recordings made by Miss Gray, to revisit them and reappraise them in view of their audiolectic attributes, to re-listen to them in response to a feeling of apprehension which I could not define with any reasonable explanation beyond the fact that it was there. Mindful of the fact that the original recordings had failed to capture anything of special interest, I fetched the key for the hidden stairwell, removed the rug, opened the hatch, and descended into the secret storage facilities of the Hontrepy archives. Upon retrieving the tapes and listening to them for a second time, I heard a very different material outcome. As a result, I am very happy to say that the propitious research investigations of Marley Gray, for all their speculative and sometimes dubious inclinations, were not a failure after all. I am confident, therefore, that the Committee of Enigmas has acted sagaciously in allowing Miss Gray to adapt the Parafaction sound investigation system to her highly audacious undertaking. I would further submit, in view of the judgments exacted here, that the future of our endeavours, such as we hope to sustain them for the generations to come, is in very safe hands, if the endeavours of Miss Gray are anything to go by. As for the recordings, I will play them for you here and now, such as we have them on the reel-to-reel, ready to play through the radiophonic broadcasting microphone. I can only surmise that something extraordinary has occurred to the tapes, by which the sounds of the Caoineag, which I believe them to be, have undergone a physical transubstantiation of their metaphysical properties. The original recordings have become the subject of an acoustic transformation, perhaps involving a temporal delay of the sonic flux through opposing dimensions of space, ranging from the natural to the supernatural to the magnetic tape of the playback device itself. And to this extent, it appears likely that the Parafaction device is capable of much, much more than we could have ever imagined. Profound listening content warning. I repeat, profound listening content warning. Due to the fact that the recordings of the Hontropy archive have proven capable of exerting a sort of psychic leverage over the minds of those who have heard them, we recommend that listeners maintain a controlled exposure to the contents in question, and that where possible, they remain in the company of other persons during the time of listening. We are inclined to believe that the activation of sonic influences from other dimensions has a potential to trigger, in some cases, a heightened perception of the sounding entities that are responsible for making them. It is as if the listener is suddenly placed in the presence of the sources of the sounds at the moment of their iteration, and to this extent, the psychological consequences can be extremely disturbing, if not indeed hideously real. In the absence of any compunction to participate in the listening process, we repeat the mantra, "Who dares listens." In regards to the Parafaction sound investigation system, it is true that the listener may undergo an oral exposure to the hidden wonders of the universe, some of which are indubitably dangerous to the human psyche. Therefore, it is always worth remembering that
who looks upon the gods goes mad.
Strength of character and a soundness of mind are the recommended attributes for exposing yourself to the case studies of the Committee of Enigmas. Suffice to say that we have restricted the availability of the frequencies of our broadcasts to a select group of patrons and members of the Trans-Global Institute of Archaeological Investigations only. If you are listening now, then you are one of the select few who has been given access to these highly secretive documentary accounts. Please ensure that your knowledge of them, as well as your exposure to them, goes no further than the secret environs of your own radiophonic wireless reception space. The next broadcast will feature a transcript sent to me by Dr. Berthold Vagas of the University of Vienna, who has some important information regarding the whereabouts of our errant colleague, Dr. Marian Taknesis. The Committee of Enigmas requires that all members should be present beside their radio sets to receive the broadcast at the appointed hour, tuning into the appropriate frequency via the Code Magnus cryptographic formula, index variation 86495. I repeat, 86495.